Emerging from a difficult past marked by civil strife and political instability, Uganda began a comprehensive and ambitious campaign to rebuild a country previously so torn apart. Starting early on the road for rebirth, Uganda has been unwavering in her quest to better the welfare of her people. Rebuilding Uganda politically, socially and economically was to become the agenda of President Yoweri Museveni. The strategy was to put in place policies that favor democracy, the rule of law and access to justice. An independent judiciary was a key tenet in the development agenda. However, a lot can still be done in the area of access to justice for the poor and marginalized, especially in rural Uganda.
Tufuna ebizibu ebiteebereka naye nga tetulina we tuyinza okukola ki okugenda kale omuntu nafuna nankani nafuna this is it is a problem on your side, it is an advantage on the other one, on the other side.
Hansi hano hari ebizibu by'amaanyi mu nobo kubotoire omusango nibakurungutaniza nibampakana n'okubaza toyina kubaza hano okirizibwa n'osoberwa.
The majority of the people in Uganda do not have the resources to instruct lawyers to represent them. And as many may seem to think, it is not very easy to represent oneself in a court of law.
About 90% of the people, for example, who are in the criminal justice system do not have a lawyer. For the civil justice system, we are talking about 70% of the people who come to court with civil disputes do not have a lawyer. Now, the challenge that it presents is that there is inequality of arms. So you have one side which has a lawyer, and then you have the other side which doesn't have a lawyer. So in terms of case preparation and also defending of the case, the person without a lawyer is always at a disadvantage.
For a long time, Uganda's had legal aid service provision, but this has mainly been done by civil society organizations. FIDA Uganda is one such organization. Set up close to 30 years back, FIDA Uganda has been at the forefront of providing legal aid to vulnerable women and children in the country.
For us as an organization that focuses on women and children, we really see the need to have the state role in legal aid coming out very clearly, and the state support for enforcement, the state support to keep down certain costs, and the state support to ensure that there is sufficient funding.
In 2009, the Justice Law and Order sector, together with well-wishers, piloted the Justice Centers Uganda across 4 pilot centers covering 30 districts. A one-stop shop regarding approach, scope and coverage was adopted by delivering legal aid targeting the poor, the marginalized and vulnerable persons. Justice Centers Uganda is now operating centers in all the 4 regions of Uganda. The pilot phase was completed in June 2013, necessitating a reviewing process to document best practices and lessons learned. There is already a best practices report.
So it's a good tool for our cabinet to use, our members of parliament to use, and all the leaders that are concerned with this issue to use to establish a good institution, a good professional quality institution to deliver legal aid.
Justice Centers Uganda, therefore, is a model that showcases and provides the government of Uganda with key learning experiences to inform policy, planning and programming for the provision of quality state-funded legal aid throughout the country.
I hope you know that police bond is free.
The model has a comprehensive outreach program that empowers people with legal aid such as the law on succession, marriage and divorce, among others.
The experiment of Justice Center has shown and proved that it is possible for the state to provide legal aid as is mandated in the constitution of the country.
Therefore, a legal aid policy is critical for an operational and regulatory framework. A policy that provides for a holistic approach to legal aid services and ensures access to justice for all. The families, especially vulnerable, And this has adverse effects on the country, especially its economic fabric. Land disputes, labor disputes, disputes within the family, domestic violence, defilement are all matters that are clogging the justice system and affect the economic development of the country.
Legal aid is a critical service as far as justice is concerned. The majority of people who approach the justice institutions in various different capacities are required to travel great distances. They are required to use a lot of resources seeking information. Many times, because of a lack of knowledge, they may spend a lot more than they are required to do.
The draft legal aid policy has been prepared and is before Cabinet. This will guide the provision of legal aid services by the state, but will also provide for cooperation between state and non-state actors in terms of legal aid provision. The policy recognizes the current gaps in legal aid services.
What we are looking at is having a platform where we can engage freely. We said these are the issues, these are our findings. When we go down to the grassroots, these are what your citizens are saying.
The gap that we want to fill by having a national legal aid policy is to provide legal representation, legal advice, and legal assistance across the board for all people who seek legal services, but also outside of just the criminal justice arena and also covering the civil justice aspects.
Such a policy is important, one, for the government to have a role in legal aid, because the policy should say what the government is going to do. Secondly, to say that to ensure that there is a fund that is created and that is prioritized.
And in here, we have provided a lot of information. Where are the poor found? Where should the centers that deliver legal aid be located? How much does it cost per center to deliver legal aid a year?
And my humble appeal is to all Ugandans out there that we need to support this cause.
If the state could provide legal services through a scheme like legal aid, it will help the people, first of all, to handle their matters in court. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So everybody is assumed to know the law. But in reality, most of the people, including those who are educated, do not know the law.
I would encourage each and every one of us to support this program, because the majority of our people are poor, and especially the women and children don't have any resources to help themselves in these processes.
What is in the proposed policy document? It provides for the setting up of a national legal aid service provider. It also provides for having a regulatory process for legal aid service providers. This will strengthen the existing legal aid institutions so they can take on the responsibility of running legal aid provision in terms of monitoring, administering the means and merit test, and ensuring that it is uniform across the board. This would also deal with capacity building, maintaining of standards, and disciplinary issues.
We are currently looking at the Law Council, which has a mandate to deal with legal aid service providers, and we anticipate that once the policy is adopted, the Law Council will be strengthened to make it efficient enough to be able to carry out this role effectively.
Legal aid and the economy.
We believe that legal aid, through its different facets, would be able to reduce costs of the justice system, and the savings from those expenditures can be translated into other more profitable economic activities. The fact that we would like to see decentralized across the country means that these gains would be experienced throughout the country and would not be centered in the urban areas as is currently the case. And this, of course, would help to open up many of the rural, semi-urban areas to more business, to more trade, to more opportunities, and raise confidence of business people and of investors, knowing that there is a system where they can seek advice and they can seek the assistance when they need it.
In terms of funding, of course, we are looking at the state, but we're also looking at the public defender to raise some money. For example, where they win cases and they're awarded costs, that money should go back into the pool to defend other people.
We could phase it and start with centers around the country that cover, especially starting from the poorest of the poor places.
Access to justice is the bedrock of social and economic development of a people. Legal aid is a critical channel through which this can be achieved.
If we want to achieve Vision 2040, so we need every Ugandan to participate in this economic development, which also ultimately leads to human development.